3, 2, 1. YouTubers, everyone, I've an extremely special guest today. I've had to break this down into two parts. This story is so mind-blowing. I had to fight back tears several times during this. Like, I just felt for this guy, like, and it's like I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to explain. You just have to watch this. This is Shane Cuthbert's story, from shit that happened to him as a child, going through, and I sort of know the feelings he went through, but not as traumatic. To the stuff he's doing now is fucking phenomenal. Like, and it just shows that people can come from anywhere. Like, he has been to the depths, the absolute fucking depths. He's been fucking set up by the officers to be tortured and bashed and jumped, and things happen with his family, yeah, I don't want to get into it all because I don't want to be a spoiler, but wow. Like, just fucking wow. Get into this. Much love to everyone. Thank you for watching, supporting the channel. Make sure to share, like, comment, subscribe, become a member if you can, and drop supers to support the channel. Also, Shane's links will be down in his description. He has YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, which he mostly uses the other socials, but he does have a YouTube, which I'll drop in the link below too. Thank you, everyone, for supporting, and here we go. We'll start with, I guess, where your life started, and, your youth, your growing up, and the kind of circumstances that you were in at them age, and role models and stuff like that you had around. We'll start with, I guess, where your life started, and, your youth, your growing up, and the kind of circumstances that you were in at them age, and role models and stuff like that you had around.
Yep.
Yep.
Man, I grew up in the hood, Western Sydney, Blacktown, Mount Druitt. My parents split up when I was really young.
Yep.
And my dad wasn't around, really from when I was a little kid till I was about 15. I didn't have much to do with my dad until I was out of home. And that's just because, when I was little, he was a bad alcoholic. I mean, we used to go stay with him when our parents had split up, and he'd just get really, really drunk, and one time he left us really just to fend for ourselves. He'd passed out, and we had no bedding and stuff like that, and me and my little brother, we ended up sleeping under a doormat. Like, that's all that we could find. So, it wasn't even big enough for the two of us, to be honest.
Yeah.
I ended up just putting my brother on it, and then just we sort of hugged it out. And that was probably one of the reasons why my mum tried to keep us away from my dad. She was going through some old photos yesterday and sent me one, and it's one of my dad, and he's wasted, and he's sitting on the floor in the lounge room. He's got a bicycle helmet on. But when we were little, when my mum left, she got a place on the same street, just a little bit further up the road. And I remember, because I'm the eldest, so I remember a little bit more about those early days than my brother does. But, I remember driving past our house and always thinking, why couldn't we go home? So I never understood that, because I didn't understand, hey, mum and dad's split up, they don't love each other anymore, or and I think a lot of kids don't understand that stuff. They just think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I go home? Am I in trouble? Is something wrong? Why can't I see my dad? Where is dad? I don't know where dad is.
Yeah.
Why isn't he here? And then, like, incredibly, it's still a bit of a spin out, is my mum used to get us babysat all the time. She was a checkout chick at Woolies, and she used to get us babysat by the neighbour of the house where we used to live. So we'd be in the backyard, like, playing. Our dad had come out. He'd come outside to mow the lawn, and we'd be, like, looking over the fence, like, that's our dad. Why aren't we allowed to go home? Why aren't we at home? Why isn't dad looking after us?
Yeah.
And that really messed me up because I just remember being so confused as a kid, like thinking, what the hell's going on? And I sort of thing, like that's how it started.
Yeah.
Um, then my mum used to, basically, she just used to get, a bit violent. Like she used to just lose her shit. I mean, I was a bit of a naughty kid. Like I used to get into, mischief and stuff like that. You know, I don't think any more than any other kid. Like I was just a little kid, like
Yeah.
if you turned your back on me, I'm into the cupboards and pulling
Yeah.
out pots and pans, like
Yeah.
just stuff like that. And even looking back, I think maybe I was just seeking, attention still as a little kid, thinking, hey, my dad's gone, I don't understand, I'm going to pull these pots and pans out. But then definitely my mum didn't know how to handle it. Um, Me and my brother, we used to have to do the dishes, like wash and wipe up. And I remember, man, we couldn't even reach the sink. So we used to have to climb up onto a stool and then a chair. And, I remember one time, like, my brother dropped this dish. Like, in all honesty, he's probably about 3 or 4 years old. This thing probably weighs as much as he does, and he dropped it. And, we both got belted because, we broke dishes and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
remember being in kindergarten and I had to iron my own school uniform. And I remember my little brother, for some reason, picked up the iron, realized it was hot. He's dropped it on the carpet, and we were in a housing commission house. But even then, it was a newer commission housing house, and my mum did look after stuff. But man, she lost her shit like when she got up. And I think about it now, and I'm like, fuck, man, we were so like tiny,
Yeah.
like
Did it
irons are
stain the
pretty heavy.
carpet or?
Like, yeah, burnt
Oh
burnt
yeah.
a hole in the carpet, like
Oh
melted
wow.
the carpet, and
Yeah.
and we actually tried like covering it up. Like I remember we put water on it. We like tried putting pillows and blankets on it. Like mum's up in bed, she'd get up, because she was working night shift, and she'd get up and she'd just be angry and just fucking belt us. And I remember she used to go through wooden spoons. Um, if I swore, which probably rightly so, like bit of punishment, I used to get the mouth, the soap in the mouth,
Oh yeah.
and obviously I hated that. Like,
Yeah.
but I used to, I'd start biting down on it and I'd spit it back in her face, and then that would just piss her off more, and she'd just really just go to town on us, is what I remember. Like she used to throw things at us, she used to hit us a lot. We went through all the wooden spoons. Um, then she was using like steel ladles and shit like that, and like hitting us so hard that like that stuff was getting bent. And I remember being in the shops with her one time when she was buying these um, plastic spoons and stuff. And I remember her looking at me and like was like, "Oh, that's to belt you because I keep going through wooden spoons and stuff like that." And I'm like, I think about that now and I think, holy shit. So I had a dad that was an alcoholic that was just off with the fairies, that, I felt unloved because he was gone. And then I had a mum that used to, beat us up. And so no wonder I felt like, very unloved and stuff, and I've
Yeah.
always struggled with that.
Like premeditated too, eh? Like shopping for the spoons. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just, and I think was probably trying to, like, there was an element of fear. Like she was probably trying to tell me like, hey,
Oh yeah.
this is what's going to happen to you later if if you're naughty. So um that never worked for me.
Yeah.
I I still sort of always growing up push the boundaries and things. And
Yeah.
it sounds odd because like I sort of got to a point where I think I was just seeking attention and love so much that I was like, well, if I'm going to be ignored and be alone and stuff, then, if the only attention I can get is that negative stuff, then I'll go for that. And I did. I used to play
Yeah.
up. I used to be annoying. She'd try to put us to bed, and, I'd never want to go to sleep. I'd be like sneaking out of my bed and just stuff like that. And, I found a Woman's Weekly or new idea or some article the other day, because I sort of got paraded around as a kid as this naughty, out of control kid, and did a lot of media when I was younger. And there's a quote in there where she's talking to the journo, and she says, "Oh, actually, when I've gone and done some parenting classes, and I've learned not to lose my temper, and he's actually been better." And I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, if that's not a fucking light bulb moment, like, don't beat your kids.
Yeah.
I don't know what is.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
um,
know what you mean. Yeah, like as a kid, I sort of did the same thing too. Like just kept getting in trouble. But it's also a thing like as a kid, you're learning, so you're not. I'm not
yeah,
thinking I'm going to get caught with all this stuff. Like I don't
yeah,
know until I've been busted.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Man, it's like the kids I work with now, because I work with all these young criminals. I'm trying to get them on the right path, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, look, just lock them up. They know what's right or wrong." But if you're a kid that grew up and you didn't have a normal upbringing, maybe you did have dad was in and out of jail, maybe mum was selling weed or something like that. Your idea of what's right and what's wrong is going to be
yeah,
different to everyone else's anyway.
yeah,
But B, you're a kid and you just don't have that capacity to think about the consequences or the future. I mean, I see kids now and I see them in the courthouse, and man, they're shitting themselves and they're crying and
yeah,
they think, fuck, I'm going to jail. And you think, okay, then why did you do what you did? Because they didn't think at the time. They were with some older kids. Maybe they're in the back of a stolen car thinking, hey, this is fun. I'm hanging out with my mates, bit of a joyride, bit of a thrill. And then all of a sudden, you're lit up from behind, you're getting
yeah,
arrested, you're getting chased, and you're like, oh shit, what have I done? And I mean,
yeah.
we
And it's
still
sort of
do that as
expected of
adults.
you. Do you feel that
What's
like
that?
it's as when you live in those areas, you feel like that's expected of you. Like this is the
Yeah,
path. This is everyone's path.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, you think it's normal because you've
yeah,
seen that happen to, mum and dad. I had someone the other day ask me, oh, what's wrong with the kids? Why don't they respect the police and stuff? And I was like, well, for this kid, every time he's had an interaction with the police, it's been negative. You know, he didn't go to school and get to sit in the police car as a kid and press the siren like it was all fun and games. It was like, hey, the police are rocking up to arrest dad and take him to jail, and you got your mum screaming at him saying, oh my God, don't take him away. Police are bad. Or, that's the experiences they had. So they
yeah,
think, oh, look, police are negative.
yeah,
Um, and a lot of those families in those low socioeconomic, the hoods, everyone does distrust the police and you don't like
yeah,
the police. And even if someone's done wrong by you, you don't tell the cops because you know that they're the enemy. They're worse than whatever's
yeah,
happened to you.
yeah,
Um, I was lucky, man, when we were kids. Like I think about it now, and I spin out because we spent a lot of time like walking around Mount Druitt, getting up to mischief, and we were little. Like we were young, and we never got bashed. We never got, there'd be guys out there sort of had that everyone sort of knew everyone in the community and sort of knew like the kids were sort of left alone.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean that was pretty good. Um, yeah,
Yeah, like people know when you're from the area and like when you feel comfortable and stuff. It's not like when someone walks into a place like
yeah,
that that's not from there. They're sort of like, you can
looking
tell they
around.
don't belong there. Yeah,
Yeah, they got the sixth sense and the eyes in the back of their
yeah,
head and walking on eggshells, and you pick up on that. When
yeah,
someone's just confident walking around, like you think, oh, okay, they're from here.
yeah,
Um, and yeah,
yes, for sure. Right, so with your life, then you went you I've spoken to you before about this. You went your mum got more babysitters as you got a bit older, like some
yeah,
relatives of
yeah,
yours and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So when we're a little bit older, I'm probably 7, 8, something like that. Um, we used to get babysat all the time, again, and either that was our mum at work or when our mum was, single mumming, she was out with different guys all the time, so there was a bit of that as well. So she's going to the pub, the club, all of that stuff. And and we'd be at home getting babysat, usually by, young girls, some of the younger like kids that I think that she worked with, like they're 15, 16, want to make some pocket money, look after these kids. And, I used to hate that too, because again, I just felt like I was alone. Where's my mum? Um, and when you're a kid, you don't really understand that mum's not there because she's at work or like she's got commitments. Because like all of that stuff, when you're a kid, you got no concept of that, of like time or money. Like you just think, I don't know where money comes from, but mum just pays for shit. Like
Yeah.
you don't have any idea. You don't know what stuff costs. And, so I think as a kid, you're just thinking, like, where's my mum? And you don't understand. And because you don't have a dad, it's like, okay, why am I with these babysitters? Like, what's up? And then, like I'd see my mum come out late, come back with some guy, go upstairs, to the bedroom, stuff like that. So, I used to run a bit of a muck on the babysitters. Like I used to give them a hard time. And I just thought, well, if I give them hard enough time, maybe I'll teach my mum a lesson that, hey, I want you to stay here and not go out anywhere. But of course, that's not how it went. One night I remember calling Triple O and I said that I'd heard gunshots next door, and there was this like little old lady that lived next door, man, and they're like, I'm talking like, I don't know, 20, 30 cops, like all rocked up, like in the battle gear, thinking that there's been a shooting. Like just kick this lady's door in, she would have been going, what the hell, freaking out. And then, a couple of minutes later, there's a knock at the door, our door this time. And, the babysitters are like, what the hell? And the cops are like, yeah. So, we've had a call from here. It sounds like a kid, we've listened to the recording. Where's the mum? Oh, she's out. Sorry. And then here I was thinking, oh, yay. Now my mum gets to come home. But, my mum came home and she was angry.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get what I wanted. But yeah, as a kid, I couldn't articulate what I wanted either. I couldn't say, "Hey, mum, can you just stop going out?" So it's difficult for kids growing up, and I see it now with all the kids that I work with. They got all these issues and all these things happening to them, and they don't know how to articulate it, how to tell anybody. They don't even understand what's going on themselves. Like I had my middle name Craig is named after my uncle who passed away just before I was born, and he was hit by a truck. And my mum used to try when she could look after and support my older cousins, and they were in and out of juvenile detention, like they were teenagers. And at that time, when they're teenagers, like I'm in primary school, me and my
Yeah.
little brother, and they were molesting us, and we never
These are
told anyone.
boys
Like I
or
didn't.
girls?
Girls,
Yeah.
girls. And, you know, it's a thing there. Like, I remember, like, I first talked about that when I was in high school. I went to an all boys school, wasn't the place to talk about getting molested by my cousins. I ended up just getting
Yeah.
teased, like, oh, you fucked your cousin, haha, like, you're a dirty grub. And that's how I still feel to this day, because man, that whole incest element, like, although I had no control really about what was happening, I knew it was wrong. I kept it secret, and that's all part of the grooming process. But I still feel now like I'm dirty, like I did something wrong. There's something wrong with me because that stuff happened to me as a kid. And I only just told my mum about it a couple of years ago, when I turned 30, and I'm like, oh, I'm a grown man now, telling my
Yeah.
mum, what happened to me. And she was like, oh, that's just kids, experimenting and exploring. And I was like, mum, I was like 5 or 6 years old, and they're like 13, 14, like they're in
Yeah.
high school. And a lot of that's happening to a lot of the kids that I work with now. So I can kind of understand, we got a kid now that he was locked up for a couple of months and he's just got out. Totally different. And we know something's happened, and I know, like haven't got it out of him yet, but I think, okay, something's happened up there. That's not right. Maybe eventually he'll talk about it. Maybe not. It might take him
Is
20
that
or 30 years. Um,
juvie or?
yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, juvie. And, my cousins in and out of juvie, girls as well.
Yeah.
They had older kids that were, 18, 19 doing the same stuff to them. So not that it's not that everyone that is abused then becomes an abuser. Like, there's quite a lot of us that I think we're so traumatized by it we don't do it. But I do know as well that a lot of those young kids, when they're in those developmental stages and that weird stuff happens to them, that
Yeah.
bad stuff, and they're groomed that way, they do think this is normal or that's how I'm meant
Yeah.
to be. And it confuses you because, like I said
And they,
before,
they
like when
sort of
I
want
hit my
that power
teenage
back
years,
too, that's been taken from
yeah,
them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
man, met a lot of guys in jail like that, that just like
Yeah.
it becomes a thing that it's that authority and that power and that, they're trying to get the power back. And it's sad because I'm so against pedophiles and grubs and
Yeah.
all of that stuff,
Yeah.
but
100.
I sort of understand where it comes from and why people are like that. And that's why now, man, I'm just so passionate about protecting kids because they don't know what's going on. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
know when I was a kid. I still struggle with this now because I think back to that time and I think I knew that it was wrong.
Yeah.
And then I still ask myself, why didn't I tell anybody? Like, if I knew that it was wrong, and I still struggle with that because I still don't know the answer. And obviously, I was just groomed in a way that
You've,
I knew that it was bad.
yeah.
It had to be a secret. I
Well,
didn't feel
there it
threatened.
is,
Like,
there, bro. You've obviously been manipulated into like it needs to be a
yeah,
secret, and you know what I mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's another thing that gives me, shame and guilt is that, like, I even remember thinking for a while like it was this cool secretive thing, like I was into it, like, and I know, I've spoken to a lot of guys as adults that stuff happened to them when they were younger, and they were like, they feel guilty because they feel like maybe they liked it or enjoyed it, and it's like they struggle with that years later because they're like, hang on a second, this was messed up. And actually, our friend Russell, God bless him, he used to always say, that wasn't our shame and guilt and our backpack to carry. And I think he was spot on with that.
Yeah.
Even so, I still feel like I'm carrying it, But as I
Yeah.
talk about it, feels like a weight and a pressure has been taken
Yeah.
away.
And also you're helping others, too, which is like which helps you at the same time helping others like
Yeah,
process their
yeah,
stuff and sort of like as you know, a lot of them do reoffend or become the abuser. So it's like you sort of know because you've been in them steps. Like you
yeah,
haven't become the abuser, but you've been abused, and you sort
yeah,
of know where it leads or where it can lead. So and sort of how to get into that headspace or what they're thinking.
yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
someone that doesn't have that experience like myself, I wouldn't know what they're thinking or how to stop them thinking that.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's important for people like you and what Russell was doing to to do this stuff for people because you are going to be able to help them way more than anyone else.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So good on you, bro. Like 100%, bro. Yeah. Like
Thanks,
it
bro.
is tough too, bro, because most people won't even like talk about it, let alone
Yeah,
like how honest you are about it too.
it's I know, like, even just on that, talking about it, I know that's not for everyone, but I know that there's a lot of people that bottle a lot of stuff up,
Yeah.
and I know for me, letting go of it has been a good thing,
Yeah.
And I remember, Russ was telling me for a long time, man, tell your story, get it out, and I was hesitant, but then when I did, you know, I started feeling good about myself because I was helping other people, and it's sort of like it puts a purpose to this. You got this pain and this trauma sitting there, and it's doing nothing. It's living
Yeah.
there rent free in my mind, making me feel shit every day. Um, I can't change it. I can't go back. I can't erase it. But now I'm using it as like a positive thing. Like, okay, so I went through this shit. I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't. But now I can use it for some good to help people. Whether that's talking about it, sharing my experience, or understanding what other people are going through, so that I can be there for them.
Yeah.
Um, It does. It makes you feel good. Like you've got a purpose, like there was a
Yeah,
reason that you went through all of that stuff, and I can make a
yeah,
little bit of sense of it for myself.
yeah, yeah. And also, yeah. All right. So if we go back, you've gone through this stuff, and so you started drinking or taking, you know, substances, drugs at a young age.
Yeah, I remember being like 12, 13, when I used to probably smoke a bit of weed, and it's funny because it was easier to get that than it was to get drinks. Like I had one of our friends' mum used to be able to buy us alcohol and stuff like that, but for some reason, I always remember it was a lot easier for us to go and like get a stick from somewhere. Like people
Yeah,
were, more willing to sell us a stick than it was for us to go in a bottle shop and have ID or a fake ID, or even, we used to hang out the front and we'd like try to ask people to go buy us alcohol and stuff. And yeah, but like I really struggled with all of that substance abuse. Like, yeah, I I never liked hard drugs, and that's because when I was a kid, like if I go back a little bit, I was about 8 or 9. Man, I used to get bullied hard at school. Hey, like,
yeah,
and bullies loved me because I would always react. So they were always looking for that reaction. Like I'd always bite, and there was these three brothers that used to, oh man, just tease the fuck out of me, bash me up, all of that stuff, all the time, all the time. But I remember these other three kids, also brothers, come out from the UK, and then they were bullying me as well. So I had like these 6 kids in the school that were bullying me, all brothers. They all got along. Um, and one day, one of these kids come up and he picked me up. He come up behind me, so I didn't know that he was coming. So caught me by surprise. Just picked me up and threw me to the ground. And you know, he probably didn't think it was going to be as serious as what it was. But I put my arm out as I was coming down to break my fall, and basically my arm snapped. Like my bone came out. There was blood
oh,
everywhere. I severed my main artery. Like it looked like somebody died in the middle of the
yeah.
playground, and
Wow.
it was hectic because we're in primary school. I'm in like year 3 at the time, and I remember like teachers all, running around trying to put pressure on my arm, but it was like you couldn't do anything about it. It was like it was pretty bad, and um, I passed out from blood loss. Obviously, like I lost a lot of
Yeah,
blood, and I spent weeks in hospital, having surgeries, um, basically recovering from that. Obviously they must have given me blood transfusions and stuff as well. And so I'm in hospital and they put me on morphine. And um, I guess because, it's a painkiller and I'm having these hectic surgeries, but like I was a little kid and all I felt was shit all the time. Like they were dosing me up. Man, they were trying to put a needle anywhere they could, like they were trying to swap it every day, and they were trying to test for veins in between my toes and all sorts of stuff, man. And I just remember it being absolutely horrible. But after the first sort of couple of weeks, it was the come down that was really, really shit. I know a lot of people that have struggled with addictions and coming down off stuff know how bad it is. And it's like the doctors didn't understand, no one explained to me why I was feeling so shit. I just remember being asleep, and if I was awake, I didn't want to be awake. So I remember basically being depressed. Again, I was a kid, I couldn't articulate it. I was just like, I don't want to be awake because I felt so shit, cramping, vomiting. I'd have people come to see me and I'd just be vomiting the whole time, and I hate it. Like I didn't know what depression and suicide was at the time, but I didn't want to be alive at the time. I didn't want to be awake. And I think that always kept me away from the hard drugs. Like I never got on the
yeah,
heroin. Um, I was always pretty careful with taking pills and things like that. Like I really didn't get into that stuff in excess, and it's just because I had that traumatic experience from when I was a kid. But then when I did become an adult, here I am trying to stay away from the hard drugs, and I'm finding prescription drugs acceptable because they're prescribed. So I used to love, man, nothing more than drinking and doing endones, oxycontins, stuff like that. Love that. I remember one time.
At that age, like still in
Oh no,
primary,
like
or
when I was older.
oh yeah.
Yeah, when I was older. I remember going into a club, so I'm at least 18, and I was on crutches because I had a broken ankle, broken leg, something like that. And I'd go every time I had something, I'd have some broken bone for some reason because I did something stupid while I was high as a kite. I would then go, hey, I've got this broken leg or arm or whatever it was, and I'd go to like 7 different doctors because they'd all prescribe me painkillers, thinking that that was the only doctor I was going to. And so, I'd stock up. And I remember one night I was going into this club and I was on crutches. So I had a broken knee or leg or something. And I remember being so off my head that I just mid going up the stairs on crutches, just passed the fuck out. And I just fell back down the stairs because I was just, that's it, lights out. And, people grabbed me, got me into the club and propped me up. And I think, that was a bad time. And eventually I got into Robitussin, cough medicine. I loved that. I could buy it anywhere over the counter. I had a friend of mine come over one night and he said, oh, so I've got this stuff for us all to try. Like there was a group of us and he had a few bottles and we're like, what the fuck is that? And he's like, oh, don't worry, and he mixed it up. And he mixed it up with like a Red Bull. And he's like, just drink this. And, we're sitting there watching a movie for like an hour and I'm thinking, man, this is dumb. I don't feel anything. And then I remember getting up to go to the toilet and I went outside and I looked up and I saw all these stars and I was like, wow. It was like the first time I'd ever seen fucking stars. Like,
Yeah.
It's a bit fucking hallucinogenic because it's got DMT in it. So, you get off your head. Like I remember like laying on the concrete thinking, hey, this feels like a feather bed, like
Yeah.
weird stuff. I'd be rubbing my face on the concrete and stuff. I actually had a run-in with the King's Cross police once. I was off my head, went into town with my mates. They were going clubbing. I was so fucked up. One of the boys was like, hey, yeah, you can't go to town. You can't get into the clubs, but we're staying upstairs in the hotel there. And we're down the back alley. And I think a couple of the guys had pissed on the wall, and then we get pulled up by these cops. And I actually genuinely hadn't gone to the toilet, but these cops are like shining the torch in our face. Like, what are you guys doing? Are you guys pissing on the wall? And I'm like, no. And I remember looking at this cop. I got up, I was right in his face. And I started reaching out because I thought his face looked really good. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to touch this face. Like, look how good it looks, right? And this cop's just stepped back and he's like, what the fuck are you on? I've got like these pupils. And I'm like, nothing, bro, just a bit of cough medicine, and he's like, what the fuck? And then my friend grabs me and then thankfully they got another call for something more serious and they left us because yeah, obviously they were probably going to arrest me and lock me up and work out what the fuck I was on. Because man, I was off my head, but it was legal, and
yeah,
I thought, there's nothing they can do about it. But I man, I did a lot of dumb shit around that time. Like I was basically just doing a lot of dumb stuff. I went to court in a clown costume.
Oh yeah, what happened there?
Well, look, a friend of mine suggested that it would be a good idea. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I thought it'd be funny.
So you were on bail for what? Just something small?
Yeah, look, I was on bail for damaging the side mirror of a taxi. I had this taxi driver tried to say I'd hit his taxi or something, and I ended up getting off that in the end. Yeah. But I had to obviously go report, go to the first mention at court. And, I took my wig off. I had this big, colourful wig. And I thought, okay, I was trying to be respectful, like half respectful. I thought, look, it's a bit much that I'm going into the courtroom in this fucking clown costume. I'll take the wig off to show respect. And, the magistrate was like, the fuck are you doing? Like, what's going on here? And I was like, oh, Your Honor. Like, I told him, I said, oh, look, I've taken my wig off to show respect, Your Honor. Like, I'm trying to do the right thing here. And he was just looking at me, shaking his head, like, what an idiot. And he was like, I'm really, really thinking about holding you in contempt of court. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he's looking around. He's like, oh, how do you plead? And I'm going, oh, not guilty. And he's looking at the charge and he's thinking, oh, look, it's a bullshit charge. And he just started, went into this rant. And he was like, look, I'm really considering holding you in contempt of court. People have rights, people have freedoms, but they're not unlimited. Anyway, and he let me go. And then obviously all the media was outside and it was become a big joke. We're like, hey, look at this absolute idiot went to court in a clown costume.
Now, when all over the news and that?
Yeah. And back in those days, like that was before socials. Like that was 2012, and it went viral really before. Like it went international. Like I was in newspapers in fucking London and shit. Like where's clown costume to court? Like, and it's fucked now because man, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I'm trying to make up for them. I, funnily enough, just finished a law degree and want to be a lawyer and be, respectful and go to court and actually do the right thing. And I've got to explain now to the Supreme Court, who decides whether or not I'm allowed to be admitted, why I wore a clown costume to court.
That was just recently, wasn't it? You finished your law degree, yeah?
Yeah. So I just finished. I've got my 3 months practical. And then basically once you've got your degree, your practical, you've got to go to the Supreme Court, put everything on the table, your criminal history, even that stuff like the clown costume, like so, even though
is that for everyone? Or just because you have a criminal record? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, if you don't have a criminal record, then you don't have to. You're in.
Oh, yeah.
But man, even academic transcripts, like there's a lot of guys that have been knocked back just because they cheated on a test or an exam at uni. Because one of the big things, really, what the the Supreme Court has said, look, it's okay for you to have a criminal history as long as you've, turned things around, rehabilitated.
Yeah.
Because the court believes in rehabilitation, right? Like, they sentence people every day. And the idea is that that person then learns their lesson. They don't do that anymore. So the court's like, hey, who are we to decide that this person's trying to change their life? Who are we to knock them back? So there's a lot of lawyers admitted with criminal histories ranging from, all sorts of things, little minor things, and those that have done some serious time. Like a friend of mine, Deb Kilroy, did 6 years in prison for drug trafficking. She's probably one of the top most well-known lawyers in Brisbane. But one thing they don't like is fraud. They don't like, because you've got to be trusted as a lawyer. Like people are going to tell you, hey man, I'm guilty of this, or I did this, or, the magistrate or the judge might ask you, hey, where is your client? And you've got to be trusted to say, oh, look, Your Honor, he couldn't make it today because he's sick. Not that, okay, actually, I haven't spoken to him and he's fucking, I don't know, probably up to no good somewhere. So the fraud stuff they really, really look at. The only fraudulent offence I have, again, another dumb one, was getting a plane ticket in the name of Kermit the Frog. That was again, that wasn't really my fault. A friend of mine bought me the ticket, and I love Kermit the Frog. So, bit of an inside joke. He was like, "I'll buy you the ticket," and then I get this email notification from Jetstar, "Hey Kermit Frog, your flight's ready." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty funny. And then I was thinking, that is also pretty dumb. Like, anyway, I went to the airport and I thought, okay, I'll give it a crack. So I went up to the self-serve Jetstar kiosk and I put in Kermit Frog and it printed out the ticket. And I was like, oh, sweet, no worries, I'm good to go. Problem is, I've gone through security, went to the toilet, I left my plane ticket in the fucking toilet cubicle. So I've come out and I'm like, oh shit, I've left the fucking ticket in there. How am I going to get the ticket? Like, I'm like, I can't go up to the counter and ask Jetstar, hey, I lost my ticket, because they're going to say, oh, what was your name? Kermit
Yeah.
Frog. Like, so I went back out through security, back to the self-serve kiosk. I'll see if it prints out another one. I'll just try it again. Kermit Frog. Yes, it printed out. I was like, oh, that's weird. But anyway, okay, I'm good to go. So I'm like back lining up for the flight. You know, everyone's going through the thing, bing, bing, bing. And then I walk up and it's like, and I'm like, oh. And then the Jetstar guy's like, I'll just step this side, sir. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no worries. And he's like, oh, do you have any identification? And I'm like, I'm pulling out my wallet and I'm pulling out my driver's license. And I'm like, yeah, but like, funny story. It's not going to match because my name's not Kermit the Frog. I've given him my driver's license and he's like, oh, you'll just be arrested shortly by the federal police. Just wait here a moment. And I was like, wait, what? Man, I didn't even think about it. I just started running. I gave him my wallet. I gave him my driver's license. I was like, I'm out of here. What really surprises me still to this day, airport security is not really that great. I got out of there. I got out. I got into a taxi. The taxi took me home. Then I called my lawyer. I was like, hey, funny story, sort of. Told him the story, and he's like, what the fuck? He's like, this could only happen to you. Like, just dumb shit happens to you. He goes, look, I'll give him a call. So he gives them a call, tells them the story, and he's like, yeah, so they know who you are because you got your driver's license. They're going to come kick your door in. We're sort of having a laugh. They were like, oh, yep, makes sense. Pretty dumb. Like, we weren't thinking he was a terrorist or anything. And then, I had to go hand myself in. They had a laugh. They're like, yeah, we know that you didn't even buy the ticket. They're like, we've already traced it to this bank account in Melbourne and it's your mate. We're going to go knock on his door. And like, I was like, holy shit, they were onto it. Like, this is like the space of an hour.
Yeah.
And then went to court and got a $500 fine. But now I've got to, again, explain to the Supreme Court why I would do that.
Yeah.
Here I am now. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be trusted and respected. And I've got to say, yeah, okay, I did some fucking dumb shit in my life. Sorry. I've turned it around now.
Yeah. All right. So you had some time in jail?
Yeah.
And that where was that at?
So I first got locked up in 2015. I did 2 months remand at Silverwater first. So
wow. To cut it off there, we're about to go into the jail, and as much as you might think there's some traumatic stuff that went on there, when this drops next Sunday, insane. Like, what's happened to him is insane. And make sure you turn your notifications on, subscribe, become a member. DM me for the merch. There's merch. Check the community posts, check the stories. There's YouTubers you can go now, shirts. So yeah, hit me up in the comments or somewhere and I'll give you links to that. But yeah, all Shane's links are down there. Part 2 next week is like fucking, if this was anything shocking to you, it goes, 20 out of 10 next week. Fucking crazy. And to think that he turns it around and what he's doing now and the way he's helping people is fucking phenomenal. I've heard lots of these stories inside. So yeah, hats off to him. Wait for next week. Do not miss this. Share it with your friends too, guys. This is something that people need to know about, people need to hear about. Also, people that, troubled youth and even troubled adults can take stuff from this. So share it to them if you know anyone, and you can go now.